We will open up the planning board meeting for May 2nd, 2023. It is being conducted in a hybrid manner pursuant to the general laws. We are recording it and we'll be posting it on the website, but if anybody else is recording it, that is fine. You just need to let us know. Anyone? Okay. 7 o'clock town planners report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just two brief items to share with the board. I believe in my report following my time out of the office, I'm elected to provide an update for the enforcement activity over at 101 Point Grove Road. This had to do with the leased boat slips that were not permitted through the planning board, although the docks themselves are licensed through Chapter 91. I think we all know this has bounced around a number of times. This most recent event had Mr. Granos, Mr. Scott, and myself invited to attend Westfield District Court alongside the police officer assigned to court for that to provide technical backup. As it turns out, there were some procedural issues with a number of the citations related to, we'll call it the date of issuance and the date when they were actually served. And of course, that ties in with the ability to appeal. So in light of that, and after some discussions, and the fact that, at least at the current moment, there are currently no boats in the water and no violation, the decision was made to not pursue the remaining citation that appeared to be valid within the time frame window. That's my update for the planning board. Want to make sure everybody's at least aware of that circumstance. Hopefully there are no further issues. There were some fairly extensive discussions with the owner and her attorney and the 3 town staff members looking at we'll call it alternatives, and the notion was put to approach the planning board with a solution. I at least want to share that with everyone and make sure I didn't fall off the radar in terms of what gets reported back here. Yeah. Let's see, the other piece of information, speaking of things falling off of the radar, we talked at the last meeting about sharing information with the select board so that Mr. Phelps' role with the Master Plan Advisory Committee could be modified, albeit slightly, to that of planning board designee, so that after the coming town meeting and election for the planning board, he would not be booted from the Master Plan Advisory Committee. So, having said that much, I can appreciate the fact with all the business that takes place, getting the town warrant together, fixing the tweaks, dotting the i's and crossing the t's. Sometimes a note falls off to the wayside, and it was not on last night's agenda. So I will follow up with the select board to make sure that discussion does take place at their next meeting, which will be May 23rd. That's it for updates.
Okay. 7:05, public comments. Anybody have anything for the board tonight that is not on the agenda? Nothing in person, anything online?
Nothing here.
Seeing nothing, we will move on to 7:10 p.m., 686 College Highway, continued public hearing. What do we have? Let's see.
Come on up. Attorney Donahue for
Yep.
the owning Indus Properties. What we have is we had an opportunity to watch the meeting that took place last week, and we have gone back to our engineering firm with the idea that we're going to try to revise our plan There are some things in the works that we are trying to consider, but we did listen to the comments of the board very seriously, including the comment with regard to one of the parcels being significantly larger than the majority of the industrial parcels. So we're looking into what options we have. I think it was clearly stated, and I think that you were very accurate. I think it was you. It's hard to tell who was talking some of the time, but it was with regard to the idea that this plan is really kind of being put forward in order to try to market the property. That's the goal here. Is the current owner just wants to sell. They have no intention of developing the property any further than what is developed right now. We're trying to sell it off. So that's the goal. To that end, we're requesting that the board consider an extension of this hearing even further. My understanding is pursuant to the Massachusetts general laws, we can request it as long as the request comes from us. We can go outside of the timeframes that are prescribed. I believe the total timeframe is 150 days as of May 8th, which would be the end of the period for making a decision. We're requesting that we extend that out further with the idea that we are going to come forward with a plan that might incorporate some of the concerns that the board already has. That being said, I haven't provided this yet, but this is just our request for a 120-day continuance. That 120 days was kind of thought out a little bit with everybody's vacation schedules over the summer. We just thought that it would be best if we can put it into September instead of dropping it like in July or August, which are typically nightmares to try to schedule around with engineers, the proponent himself, and myself. It's tough.
And we only have one meeting in July and August, I believe, so.
Even better. So,
We
we would,
have next September's meetings, do we?
so,
Okay,
that's something that the board would consider.
all right, and so, I just want to make sure, obviously, when you're talking about it, you're talking about the timeframe to make a decision on the application. When are you also looking to continue out this hearing for that length of time, or are you intending to present something in the meantime?
I mean, I think that we would prefer to put out the hearing and for that, and then extend the decision even beyond that if it was necessary. I think that we might be able to wrap it up shortly thereafter, assuming that it's not a moot point.
Okay. Can I see the schedule? All right.
Would you like me to amend my request?
I would, well, I mean, we may formally just do it, or have you assent to it, but I think my inclination, and I appreciate if you may not have further information, but I think my inclination, just rather than to have that long of a period go without at least
Some report?
It doesn't even have to be a report, but at least it's on the agenda, so that if there's something to be dealt with, at least it's there.
Understood.
So my inclination would be to put it on the agenda for June 27th, which is, almost 2 months down the line. There's only 2 other meetings in between that, but, and again, it's not, if you don't have anything, a request for continuance is perfectly appropriate. I just want to at least build that in so that we're not going that, 4 months without at least the possibility of, if something comes up, we can deal with it.
Absolutely.
Does that sound appropriate to you?
It's very reasonable.
All right, so you can just orally, you're assenting to orally modify the request to continue it to June 27th. And I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to June 27th at, let's just say 7:10 PM.
I'll second it.
We'll do a roll call vote. Michael Doherty, aye.
Marcus Phelps, aye.
Rich Gelsinger, aye?
Okay.
Dixby, aye. Mr. Sutton did not vote. He may be trying to vote.
All right.
I said aye.
Oh, he did say.
All right.
There we are.
All right,
It's
so,
unanimous.
just keep that, you can just communicate with John.
Absolutely.
In advance of it, and just let us know where things stand.
Appreciate it, John. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you to everybody on the board.
Have a good night.
Yep. I actually might stay around for a little.
Okay.
Oh, wow, that's interesting,
All
yeah.
right. So we got a little time.
If we have a little time, I'll just mention a new word, maybe. I know every week we seem to be having new words. Some of them are Latin. This is not exaction. It's an interesting word that is used sometimes in planning to require landowners or developers to do certain things in order to get approval of the plan. So someday you may want to study it. Maybe in our green land use law book, I don't know.
I'll
But
bet it is.
it's an interesting approach to things. And in the past, we have used that approach on certain developments. And, you have to be careful the line you walk, because it has to be tied to an impact from that particular development, and not just something we feel like we want to put on people.
Let's come up with a sidewalk.
Yeah.
issue, hasn't it?
I think probably, and, whatever, but, anyway, it's a good word, and I'm sure you will use it in the months to come.
How much more time we got, Mike?
Do you have a word?
No, but I wanted to say something.
Yes, you can.
All right.
We have
Well,
10 minutes.
Seeing as how Marcus just came up with that great explanation of that incredible word, I was hoping to be the person, but seeing as how this is Marcus's last planning board meeting, I just wanted to tell him that I really appreciated the time I had serving with him, and how much I learned from him, and how much I enjoyed our debates. And I'm going to miss you by my side.
Thank you, David.
All right. Why don't we,
Minutes?
This is minutes.
we can do the minutes. Why don't we do the minutes? Anything we need to know about the April 11th minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Just pull it up and make the amendments while we're talking about them.
We will do it live. Bear with me for just one moment.
You know what, Marcus, if you want to give a master plan advisory committee update while we're.
Master Plan Advisory Committee, sure. Next meeting is this week, May 4th, at 7 PM. And I believe it's going to be held here in this room. We'll be getting a briefing from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission on the status of the master plan, so we invited the planning board to attend. I also sent a letter to State Representative Baldiga and State Senator Paul Mark, to see if they were one of their representatives might be interested in attending, since it's kind of our current status, and because we're getting into the preparation of the actual plan. And so that's going on. And the other event that's coming up is June 1st. There'll be a Did We Hear You workshop for the public. And this is a opportunity, the last opportunity, for the public to weigh in on some of the goals that have been drafted for the plan. It's going to be a 2-hour meeting starting at 6 p.m. and facilitated by Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. John, I don't know, do you have any other information? I watched the recording of the committee meeting, so I saw that they decided June 1st.
That was important,
Which is a
right?
Thursday, so it's actually one of our regular meeting dates. But anyway, that will be sort of the last public listening session. We could, call it that, but they decided to say, use the words, have we heard you? And there are handouts available at the election, at the voting area on just a one-pager. And we hope to have a table at the annual town meeting with similar information.
You will.
So we keep trying to interact with the public as much as possible. Since we did get a good response to the questionnaire, 900, and we beat out any other communities in the area. So, we've been really successful in reaching the public. So hopefully this document will be received by the town. And of course, the planning board is the one that will vote on approving it. But anyway, that's where we are.
Is your meeting gonna be on Zoom, meeting on the 4th?
Yes, it'll be in this room, so we'll be right in here.
Who's
Yes.
gonna have the thing, 11?
Yeah, John. So you can certainly listen in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, minutes. Jessica, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Under 159, I had recorded Mr. Utzinger as the seconded for the motion to continue the hearing
Bear with me for a moment. Oh, I see.
instead of Mr. Spina. I could be wrong, but I made that note. And then on the proposed short-term rental bylaw, second paragraph, third line, short-term rental should only happen in cases of owner occupied, not owner after 5, maybe?
Okay.
Yep. And
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
okay. And then under routine business, the master plan advisory committee update, we are invited to a May 4th meeting, not May 5th.
May 4th, yeah.
And that is all I have.
Page 4.
Who
Oh,
can
yeah.
get past the idea of Cinco de Mayo, right?
Well, I mean, we're there for May the 4th.
That's true. If I can go back to 159 Berkshire for the sake of discussion,
Yes, sir.
and data, I also have it down as Mr. Spina being the one to second.
So, there you go.
Just for the sake of
I will
accuracy.
not fight. You don't remember.
Anything further?
Under the public comments, let's see, 1, 2, 3, the 5th line, Ms. Cook Overgon said, I think it should be, she is going to all boards and committees. And then under the short-term rental bylaw, last
Yeah,
sentence of the first paragraph, I think it's supposed to be this will in turn spike home prices negatively as opposed to process.
Where was that?
Page 3.
First paragraph of the first
The
10
prices.
pages.
Oh, the rental. Oh, yeah.
All right, anything else?
Mr. Phelps, this is your chance to shine.
Is it?
Edits on the edits.
It's perfect.
That's lovely.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes for April 11th?
Marcus Phelps, so moved.
Do I hear a second?
Richard Singer, second.
Do a roll call vote, Michael Doherty, aye.
Marcus Phelps, aye.
Richard Singer, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Dave Spina, aye.
Jessica Thornton, aye.
Okay. That is all set. Cool.
Okay, actually, on time.
All right.
Good.
Where's the A and R, yeah,
A&R's real quick.
fantastic.
Okay, this property, we're looking at Sheep Pasture Road earlier, I'm sorry, this was 2022, I believe, when we split off Lot 5 for this. This is just after we go by the Rise, not too far from the Secretary's residence. This land slopes up fairly significantly into the larger acreage. As the road dips down, it flattens out a little bit, and that's why they split off, if you will, what they're calling Lot 5 down at the end. So for the remainder of this, we obviously have an abundance of both frontage and acreage, more than enough to satisfy zoning. Although the land does slope upward fairly significantly into both these parcels, I think we're providing more than enough space to manage whatever access concerns they may face in order to construct a driveway or what have you into the property.
Okay.
So Megan lives down here,
Yep, opposite side. This, so
Okay.
I think this might be.
and this
one of
is
the higher points of-
Arnold down,
Yep,
Arnold
the
here.
Arnold Farm is just on the other side of that switchback, which begins on the southern side of this property.
So just making this lot 65,000 square feet, that's,
Yeah, that one we did earlier,
Oh, we did
sometime
it?
last year,
Okay.
so they're actually splitting
Those
up
two,
this main
okay.
acreage into two separate parcels.
Any questions?
Quick and easy.
Okay.
I think so.
Marcus, this is your last opportunity to give us the
It's a
language.
big moment.
Marcus Phelps will make a motion to endorse the approval not required plan for
Sheep Pasture Road.
95? Sheep Pasture.
95 Sheep Pasture Road.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Do a roll call vote, Michael Doherty, aye.
Marcus Phelps, aye.
Richard Singer, aye.
Dave Spina, aye.
I said aye.
All right. Okay. 7:30, 159 Berkshire Avenue. Derek, how are you this evening?
Very good. Yourself?
I am lovely. All right. Where do things stand? I'll ask you, Derek, first, and then we'll go to John.
Okay. Let's see. I sent over a couple updated plan sheets this week. And so I guess I could summarize everything into maybe 3 activities: the plan sheets, the details, and the notes. So I think at this point, the plan sheets are complete, call them 100% complete. And that's, bones of the project are pretty much complete. So I don't think there's any changes to any of the main underlying proposed structures or layout, the general layout, the scope of work. Everything's gonna remain there, so the details themselves on the installation of the materials, 60% is what I would say, but what that might look like is just a matter of plotting them and adding dimensions. The materials specs and are complete, so the materials that we're gonna install are decided on. No changes along those lines. It's just a matter of plotting full-size sheets. And then the notes. So I think with the notes, the work there is to just combine earlier notes with the latest, more accurate notes and reduce or eliminate any conflicts. Cleaning that up so we're not being redundant, but everything's kind of moving in one direction. And I think it's coming together. I just don't see any surprises at this point, so.
All right.
What Derek's reported is, in line with my understanding, I see that we received some new materials, excuse me, this afternoon. And when we spoke with Randy last, he was optimistic about the progress. And that's what led to development of the most recent comment letter. So I think, to be fair to you, Derek, and the board members, do you have any, at least in the work done so far, to align your application with the comments? Do you see any specific areas of concern in the comments that would warrant exploration right now?
Nothing comes to mind. I believe I could, if not answer the question, I agreed to the comment as far as, in one case, allowing, eliminating a note basically, so it's not restricting the improvements to any special location. It's all encompassing, in other words. So I think I just agree to that, and it's taken maybe a step back and looking at larger areas that need topsoil or seeding. So I agreed to the comments. I'm just looking to sort of move on maybe some of those earlier phases of the construction side and start seeding, start bringing in some topsoil material where we can make progress there. And I know before we were to excavate, you were looking for some elevations and the details on the cross section basically. And I have drawn it up. I just haven't plotted it. So everything's going to be coming together.
All right, I just wanted to make sure there weren't any, we'll call them hiccups, that you saw coming down the line. Thank you.
So what are we, looks like stuff is probably on your desk, right? What are we talking about for, just put it on for the 23rd and
I think we should keep our
should be in.
finger on the
decent
pulse. Derek, so, if you want to.
Yep.
Jump in here. So that puts us 3 weeks out. Where do you see the rest of the deliverables falling?
Within the 3 weeks, I believe that would be enough time to get the rest of the sheets plotted. At least sent over electronically. I can't promise I'd have the hard copies in maybe that time frame, but I'm striving to.
The hard copies is more of a
Okay.
file need at this point. We're able to proceed with our familiarity with the project, with what you're able to send electronically.
Yep, that's fine. Okay.
Will you run out of voting members?
No, I was able to verify that although this does follow special permit procedures, it's just a simple majority for the stormwater
So you
permit.
need 3 votes,
And yes, we'd need 3.
favorable votes to pass it.
That's correct.
All right. What's 157?
That's a new filing. No, I'm sorry, that's not. Let me say that all over again. That's the Cricksy House. Wouldn't it be nice
Oh,
if
yeah,
someone
yeah.
wrote the business name right
Yeah.
after the address? Go further.
Yeah.
I'll have one other new application.
Okay.
What's that, 19?
All right, so that's gonna take, so why don't we put it on again for 7:30? Derek, had you submitted a request to continue this one, or no? I can't remember if you submitted something or not.
I haven't sent one, I can type one up and send it over.
No, you can do it orally, and that's fine.
Okay, all right.
It's being recorded, so I'm not worried about that, but as long as, so, all right, so we will, do I hear a motion to continue 159 Berkshire Avenue to the next meeting? So it'll be at 7:30 on May 23rd.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Dave's been a second.
Do a roll call vote. Michael Doherty, aye.
Marcus Phelps, aye.
Richard Ottinger, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Dave's been aye.
Okay. So we'll see you on May 23rd, Derek.
Thank you, Board.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right. That takes us to 141 Congamon Road.
Okay.
Who's that?
Ken, you want to
DJH.
come up?
DJH.
Why don't we? Well, let me just make sure I understand. The parking is your issue, the configuration of the docks, is that a
That's not,
broader issue? That's with Dick, I guess, too. Okay, all right, but your issue is the parking issue in the lane. Is that right?
Yeah, a further discussion on the last meeting that I was here for, when you approved my being able to shorten up the parking spaces, the 4 parking spaces, which was gonna allow for special allowance for shortage of space.
Yep.
One day when the building inspector was out at the property, I approached him and I asked him to take a look at this project. And in the midst of him looking at the project, he said, why don't you just put bollards here rather than start, cutting off a little bit of the handicap spot, or maybe tearing down some of the building, whatever would be necessary. It was his recommendation, and he said that it's something that as a building inspector, he would sign off on. John, did you receive emails
I
that,
am restarting my programs right now.
I don't have anything huge, because of the late hour that it was given to me at 5 o'clock tonight. But we, in the last meeting, okay, that's that. We're talking this area right here. And do you have the pictures that I sent? I think looking at the picture that I sent would say a lot more than what that does.
Did you send those to me?
I did, along with that.
I got that from RLA.
Oh, well then look,
I will check to see if I.
see if you have emails from me, from AKM 5253. What that corner looks like is it's got 4x4s holding up a roof above. And we're proposing to put 6-inch bollards in front of the 4x4s that are on this side of the property.
John, are you able to draw that out? That's where he's talking.
Sure, give me one
Or you
second,
can
we'll
just-
zoom in on
He's
that.
trying to get the photograph.
Yeah.
Right here,
I'm gonna move it on you, Ken.
you enlarged it, right here.
I go up high enough.
Stop, John.
That was on purpose.
Right here, and what this doesn't show you, which is the
Oh,
pictures
there's
that I
a
sent
porch
over,
there.
is that there's a 4x4 right here, a 4x4 here, and a 4x4 here
Wow,
that are holding up the overhang.
yeah.
There's an overhang here, an overhang here.
Yeah.
And we're proposing to put in front of, this 4x4 also has a gutter that we're concerned about. The gutter goes into the storm water, and it's connected that way. And then, and this one over here is just a 4x4, and there's another 4x4.
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
And we want to put 6-inch ballards in front of that, the same type of ballards that we have over here. And remember, we're going to be adding 2 more ballards here and here, as requested in the last meeting. But I haven't done that yet, since I wanted to have this discussion and do all of them at the same time, if you'd be kind enough to allow that to happen.
And we're still keeping the shortened parking spaces?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So keeping the shortened parking spaces.
Yeah, 16 foot. Do you see my email?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go there for breakfast.
Oh, there you go.
I can,
Oh, yeah.
for those who want to pass around my cell phone,
Nobody to hit this.
We already beat you to it. Just-
you had pictures.
He's got street view.
Okay, well, and here, so you,
So we wanna put ballards in front of it, and that's gonna do what?
It's gonna prevent the 4x4 from getting hit by a kid.
It's gonna protect that gutter
the gutter,
that's coming
It's gonna protect the
down.
whole front of the building, really, because
I don't know,
But is
I
it
don't
going
think
to
the
change dimension or something like that otherwise? Are we just adding something to the plan, or is it going to otherwise
Going
affect
into travel
things?
lane.
It's gonna
no change.
shrink the travel lane a couple feet, something like that.
by 6
How
inches.
many?
Mike,
Because it's already pretty narrow over there, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's
He doesn't want people
20
backing into
something.
the
see, Spencer?
gutter.
Huh?
Do you get that?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
John has a, excuse me, John has a dimension at 17.
17 feet.
So from those posts to
Right
the
now.
edge of that parking spot is 17 feet.
Correct.
Or is that from the
That's the,
current?
that's,
Current,
no, that would be where the ballards are, would be proposed to be.
okay. So it's
17 feet.
proposed to have a 17-foot travel.
Right.
And it is now what, according to plan?
22.
22, thank you.
So 5 feet.
Yeah, I mean, those things
Oh,
aren't
22
small.
is the
Those things
original.
are-
After last meeting, it was less than
It
that.
was still 22 because we've shortened those parking spaces, and they maintain the 22 feet.
I want to think it was 20 or 21,
Look at
but
the
okay.
plan. But I'll bring the plan. I don't want to be,
I don't have the plans with me, but yeah.
All right.
Otherwise, it, you
For a
know,
ballard?
Kyle didn't have a good solution for what we would have to do to the building. Even though we allowed it to come back 4 more feet from the corner, still a good size of the corner of the building would have to be chopped off somehow.
I mean, I guess here's my question. Why can't those be placed right next to the post, maybe 6 inches or a foot extending into the travel lane so that it's enough to stop anything from hitting the actual up and down post rather than taking up 5 feet of the travel lane?
I have to apologize, I didn't follow that.
Sure, so let me show you. If that is the post right now.
Yes.
Right, so that's this bottom of this post, and this is the travel lane over here. Okay, so the parking spots will be over here.
Okay.
Why is it that we can't put those things here and have this stick out, like I said, 6 inches, a foot, whatever? You know, I'm not an engineer, so I defer
Yeah.
to the proper, and that way you're protecting this
If this
without
is,
taking up this space over here.
sure, if these are the parking spaces here, there's a gutter coming down here, a big time gutter, that I can't go on that side. I wouldn't be able to put it on that side of the 4x4, but certainly what you're saying here is absolutely doable, but here would probably not be. I might be able to put it out here or here, but because of the gutter going down into the ground, connected to a pipe that goes elsewhere, your positioning wouldn't be possible. But I hear you here. That makes, we can do that, excuse me. We can drill into that cement right there and go down. And I can probably drill, right in front of Can I see that again? Absolutely.
Yeah, we're about, yeah.
So the original plan showed that a cutoff of that porch.
Yes,
You just put one up, John, that showed 22 feet required, and there was a note on the plan that said it would be cut off.
right. But we, in all honesty, me, never thought we were talking about cutting the building. I thought we were talking about cutting the walkway or the concrete pad that's there that people walk through, not overhead. And now, of course, we're putting small cars in here, as requested last time, you know, we're gonna have signs on the pavement saying small cars only. And we'll do our darndest, of course, to,
So
watch for that, and make sure
what's
it
the
happens.
22 feet? What's driving that, John?
That area,
Is it,
pre-existing, non-conforming, what's driving the overall width? The
yes,
drive aisle?
right.
Two-way access, that's what's driving it.
but I mean, the
it's-
bylaw has a 25, is it?
24,
24?
it's already
So
below
we've
it.
taken two, we've reduced it two,
that,
down to
it
22.
I shall not
It
be
is-
less than
it is
24.
compromised as it sits right, as it is approved right now.
But that was for full-size vehicles.
How much room, I mean, isn't it in the bylaw that we only can go down? Isn't there a set?
It's gotta be in the parking bylaw.
This component right here is part
There's a
of the
percentage of the parking
existing
space size.
areas that they improved to.
And number of
maximum
spaces.
extent.
I don't know
Aisle
about
should not be
size.
less than 24 feet in width.
And by doing so, and as will be part of conversation shortly, you know, they even push those spaces out a little bit further away from the building to provide that 22.
Right into the licensed land.
So
Yeah, we're
if they
talking
ever
about
took
putting one
some
next
of
to
that
that too.
away, he would have no wiggle room to move those parking spaces back on, right?
That's correct. Not without,
Do you think about that portion of it, that if, you know, the state does come and say, hey, we need 1.5 feet of this, and you have to move your parking spaces back, you're taking away any of that wiggle room that you may have had to keep those parking spaces and keep your occupancy up? Because we need the parking spaces.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. Going a step further, unfortunately, I'm more aware that should the town ever come back, or the state come back and say that they want that extra 1.5 feet back,
Yeah.
that will also negate my license, and I won't be able to use any of that property. Not, you know, we won't be worrying about one-way or two-way traffic. I'm hoping that day will never come, that they'll need the land. But
And
that's,
you have structurally have to keep this overhang and the 4x4s?
we didn't get that far in the conversation. Structurally, I would probably have to take it down, and how to do that, and not cover the walkway it's a big project. It's not the project that concerns me, it's more about, you know, the look that I mean, the building looks terrible enough now, but the look of what that's gonna look like, instead of the building having an overhang, you saw the picture he had there. I mean, now you're talking about cutting off a corner of the building above the walk area into that door. It's not,
You said something.
It's
about
not
you
impossible.
might be moving the drain too, that, because it's currently flowing
Well,
into stormwater.
that's an
So, but-
additional concern.
So I'm just, could wrap my head around the fact that we would be going against our own bylaw by reducing the aisle width extensively, when it seems like there might be a structure change that may end up happening that would eliminate the need for such a tight.
What does the bylaw say?
All aisles shall not be less than 24 feet in width. And we have the allowance to change the parking space size themselves, but not necessarily the aisle size.
Well, we've already changed the aisle.
We haven't changed the aisle. You've provided the maximum practicable extent of compliance
Correct.
by expanding beyond your existing curb line and establishing, what is the parking space as it's at prior to where we are today.
Did you pull up the plans from the last meeting?
I'm sorry?
Did you pull the plans from the last meeting?
Yes, that's the one up on the screen right there.
And that's 22 feet?
Yes, indeed.
See, Ken, I think that there is room for creativity around that gutter and post. I'm not inclined to decrease, and I would have to look to see whether we even could, but I'm certainly not inclined to decrease the lane width. I think there's ability to, I mean, to put in those ballards, you're going to have to dig into the pavement anyways, right? And so, there's possibly the gutter issue as well. It just strikes me that there could be some engineering to deal with that and place protections for the supports at the same time, right? I mean, I don't know.
It can be done.
You understand that those supports that you're looking at in the photo would have to be removed completely to go back to 22 feet?
No.
Yes. To go to 22 feet, these things are sitting at 17 feet.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's
That
what,
was
that's
the
what,
hash- You see that hash wedge, Mike?
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so we,
so that cuts across, the 22 feet cuts between the cement, the brick wall and that one, and it cuts all the way across to about here. Cuts here, from here over to here, and these are both have to be removed to do that. That's why I'm asking for the
But
special.
why couldn't you move that back? And
Which one?
Why can't you cut the roof back and just?
move
the
this
poles
back and
We-
support it here,
We,
okay? Just
we've
end up
looked at the option of.
Taking out one, and leave that one here, and put another one in here. And take, this is the one that's.
This is the one,
in-
is the
in-
problem.
Encroaching.
Because Kyle thought that that would not support, what's a cavalier or something, what's the word?
Cantilever.
Cantilever. He didn't think that that would support it. We've even discussed putting in a new micro lamb along this area here and cantilever it off of this, off the wall. And he still thought that it went out too far to be able to do that without having any support to it. But the other portion of that is, would we have to take the roof right off anyways? I mean, you and I are talking about leaving the roof and trying to engineer something. But because the roof overhangs that area too, is it supposed to be removed? I believe that there is a way, as you said, to eliminate both of these posts, move this post back over to here, and move this post over to this area. And we know that we could dig up this area in front and move this storm water pipe. We could leave that pipe there and add to it, and then bring the gutter down over here into it. We know we can do that.
why, I mean,
That's good,
why can't you? So you have this, and you have this right here. Why can you not put a post here and a post here and a cross beam that holds that corner up?
And that, I think that's what he's talking about.
It wasn't, we weren't going that
Key
way.
Here, back
Is
up
to
over
get
here.
this one out, get rid of that one,
Right.
which is that
I
one.
mean, what's that, why is that not an option?
I don't know. I'm not an engineer by any means.
Matt, I'm sorry, did
Yeah,
you wanna
no,
jump?
so I was thinking the same thing as Mike, is if you bridge the support here, okay, from, let's say, this point here to this point here, and had your your supports here and here, you should be able to float that going this way.
Right.
And then you have this, which you could actually bring further inside along the pipe, as long as you have the right rise and run on it, you'll still drain the water. And then as far as protection for those, there's different types of bollards. I mean, you can use the cement bollard, like you're saying, which is a 6x6 pipe, basically. But there's also ones that are just made out of welded steel, and they could actually kind of wrap the pole itself, your support poles, with like a heavy gauge steel that you have fabricated, and it would bolt right to the cement. You could do it with a lag bolt through the cement, and it's probably the cheapest, easiest solution, and gets you back to at least 22, which is a heck of a lot closer than 24.
Yeah,
To the 24, I mean.
Look nicer.
yeah. Well, we planned, if you had approved what we're talking, or I came here to ask you to approve, all of these 4x4s were being replaced with brand new ones anyway. Because they're,
So, but
two
I
of them
think the
are
more
already.
you, if you open it up more,
If
it's
you-
gonna look better, first of all, but
Yeah.
that's not necessarily my
Right.
issue, but I think that that's
Mhm.
a benefit of it, but I think you put those there, you support it, I would still put a bollard or something to protect the sidewalk right there, in some way, you have to put something. But,
Yeah, we don't want them backing up into the real building.
well, you don't want them
Into a
backing up
walkway.
into people, also, you know, I
Right.
mean, I think you certainly don't wanna hit
This
the
is-
supports, but the people is also.
Right, right, that's why that's the other reason why we like the idea of leaving it the way it is. That way they've got their walkway, and there's no question, here's how you enter and leave the building, but,
Yeah, I don't think going down to that
okay.
17 is, I think there's
No.
ways to engineer that.
That's 7 feet. That's
I
the
mean,
width of a car.
yeah,
Mhm.
you know, that's my, and it's, I mean, nothing like two attorneys giving you engineering advice, but I do. think
Yeah,
that-
that's pretty scary.
Ground for sure.
Is the hourglass on?
Would you sign off on that, please?
I'll design it, I'll scratch it out.
Oh, no, you're too expensive.
I would say explore that. And then, you know, if there is some real difficulty with exploring that, come back to us. But that's where my head's at. And I'll turn to the board and see if they have any other
I
thoughts.
do have
but
a
that's-
comment.
And
department
John, you can
comment
jump
after this.
into. if you
Please,
want.
board first.
No, okay for now.
Well, I think what we've landed on is appropriate. I
Yeah.
think there is some engineering and design configurations that can be
Obtained.
obtained here
and I don't
before
think
we go
it's-
and really kick our own bylaw in the butt with
And
an 8 feet
But this one
differential.
can't stay.
Correct, where that goes,
Right.
but this is enough to support that
Yeah.
overhang. You cut down the sidewalk to be back here. You know, have something here to sort of protect folks, but I do think you can,
Do you think the overhang then can stay?
I think the overhang could stay,
Right.
as long as the sidewalk is not going over this, you know, this portion of the overhang, right? The sidewalk's gotta stay back here and be protected, but, I mean, and I don't think, again, I'm not an engineer and I don't know the numbers, but it strikes me that it's not gonna be all that much of a significant cost to do it this way versus the
Right,
way you were.
yeah, we
you know.
weren't,
So-
cost isn't the factor.
There's gonna be some work that needs to be done, so I'm not sure there's a
Yeah.
huge cost difference, so
Mhm.
that would be my,
And I want to look into what Matt was saying, if there's a way to add steel around these 4x4s.
I would almost use a steel 4x4 and just have a steel frame that might have been prefabricated for the spot, slide it into space.
Instead of putting wood
and-
4x4s.
And
Yeah.
span it, and it's definitely gonna carry the weight. You can
Oh, yeah.
put it
you
on the
could
4x4.
wrap it, you could do whatever you want with
Yeah,
it to make
steel.
it look better, so,
Steel is
John?
steel.
I love the creative thought that I'm hearing. No, I'm sorry. We did receive a comment from the LMC chair. I think the arc of this conversation probably makes it superfluous, but in the interest of sharing information. And Ken, if you don't mind, this also relates to perhaps the next half of your conversation. So I'm going to dive in.
So we settled this parking
It's
first.
For now.
on the-
Parking
Yeah.
is
So.
okay.
As planning board members may be aware, there was a chapter 91 license that was issued and then appealed by the town during the appropriate period. So that relates to the LMC comment. And I'll read just two quick excerpts. Inasmuch as no docks at 141 may be installed until the Chapter 91 license is finalized by Mass DEP, outcome of the appeal could impact the need for these additional spaces in the town right-of-way and could inherently resolve the pedestrian issue he raises elsewhere with other town members and the resultant possible town liability issue. I would just suggest that the planning board table making any decision on this matter until the Mass DEP appeal is resolved. So the concern further in this email chain relates to future, or rather pedestrian use of Congamon Road. Right now, there is no sidewalk from the entrance, I should say from where it terminates over at Beach Road over to the culvert.
Well, I mean, just to make sure I'm understanding, because I think the premise might be wrong, which is, I don't think the ability to use those spots through the town license is necessarily tied to the 91 license. He could use those for the restaurant if he wanted to. I don't think one is tied to the other.
That's correct. I think there was we'll call it a coincidental quantity alignment between what Mr. Eggleston needed for the leased slips and the quantity at one point in time that was
Correct.
programmed out within this licensed area.
John, help me understand what you said has anything to do with what the appeal was about. I don't understand how this area that we're talking about in this other discussion has anything to do with the wording on the appeal,
Perhaps-
which is only talking about docks in the
Perhaps
water.
very little.
I'm asking for correlation.
And my response to Mr. Granos was that as it sits right now, you are approved for the improvements prior to discussion. As we see, we're going to proceeding with that discussion. You've got the license through the town, you have the planning board approval of the site plan. So as concerns, I don't think have direct correlation between the appeal and what we're showing here at the moment. But
I think he's saying that if you don't get the license, you don't need those spots. But the way I'm thinking about it is, you have the right to use those spots whether you get the license or not. It's sort of irrelevant about the license. So I don't think it's necessarily tied one to the other. It doesn't mean that we should defer until that's done to deal with this parking issue. It is what it is. And you can use all those for the restaurant if you want to, because you have the license to do so. So,
Your board suggested that in order to get to the number of parking spaces that I needed these 10 parking spaces that are under a license from the town. But those are not designated spaces for the parking for the marina.
correct.
So that's why I don't think they have any correlation.
No, correct. I agree. I mean,
They're not, it's not like those are the 10 spaces that have been earmarked. We've decided that it's gonna be on the other side of the whole parking lot with
correct.
signs up saying these are the marina parking.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So it was to get to a number
That's
for
where it is.
capacity.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And trying
And-
also to balance the fact that this was a renewed, pre-existing non-conforming use, and that, we weren't approving a special permit for a marina. We were approving a special permit for a restaurant in which you were asking for the additional ability to rent out slips. And we made allowances with our bylaws to allow for those parking spaces to be utilized, a less requirement than we needed to allow you to expand on the special permit for the dock slips. So perhaps Granels is thinking that, come in the future, if these parking spaces via your lease agreement with the town do go away, there will have to be a drop somewhere in your business, whether it's restaurant occupancy or the number of slips you're allowed to lease. So I think that then ties to the dock allowance issue of, well, the state is going to allow you this many docks, but there won't be parking spaces to handle it. So
And we're all
direct
gonna- we're all gonna get
correlation
struck by lightning
is
as we walk out of
issue,
here. It's-
Yep.
but, you know, you did ask for an expansion on what you were allowed to have in your initial special permit, so these rental slips are,
Yeah, but we also know that
Looking
at this
at them.
time, that the license has been granted. And we'll deal with, there are provisions in your approval to deal with that if it goes away, to deal with it. Just like there's provisions in the planning board's decision that at the end of the first season, I would come back and see you in November, where we would discuss the pros and cons for 2 years. Which, you know, I don't want to get into the immediate appeal portion of it, but you've set yourselves up to watch this and to be on top of it. And, you know, that's why I say get struck by lightning, anything can happen. But the appeal is saying that there's already a problem. We haven't put the docks in the water yet, and it's a problem already. You know, I'm saying put the docks in the water and we deal with the problem, if there is a problem, in November at the meeting.
Thankfully, that is not our issue with this.
Right.
That is for the Commonwealth to deal with. Okay,
Okay,
I think that's everything
I agree.
on this issue. Anything else before we move on? Okay. All right,
Excuse me, is he gonna come back with a plan again? So do we need to look at it again?
No, I thought I was just gonna deal with the building inspector with,
Okay.
like your little drawing there.
as long as that remains 22 feet, then it can be done on the as-built, and that's fine.
Okay.
So the engineering is not our issue.
John,
That's what I understood.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have one quick question. With regard to the appeal, and I don't know if you know this answer, do you know who's going to be representing the city for the appeal? We have
What attorney?
I don't know if it's an attorney yet, because we have a mediation that's planned for Friday. We were ordered to attend, and I don't know who's going.
But
You got your
Bacon,
orders with
our
that, right?
council is Bacon and Wilson, right?
Yes, I
Mark
don't,
Bagley?
yes, I don't know if, who, from Bacon and Wilson will be.
Is that with the select board?
Yeah.
You hope.
I can ask,
won't be us, we won't
and
be-
find out who will be in attendance.
I'll give you a call tomorrow.
That's fair.
Okay, and that way, if you can find out, that's great, and if not, I'll make a phone call to whoever else might know.
Okay,
Okay?
You're gonna need minutes.
I have not been invited or
Yeah,
asked.
Your other, yes, Jeff. You're ordered to be there.
He doesn't want to be.
By whose order?
By the DEP's order.
Really?
Well, I mean,
By all means, if someone has something to share with me.
As long as I'm on that, not on that list, I'm fine. All right, I think, We're on.
oh, you're right, maybe not.
Aha.
Sure.
We don't deal with water. We are land people. We are
I
land
got,
use.
it's off.
Land
I got
use
technical.
Okay.
We don't get our feet
All
wet.
Yeah, you weren't.
Uh,
I'm accurate.
town council revision to proposed short-term rental bylaw.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Have a good night.
By the way, let's go on record and say, it's my birthday and I'm here.
Oh, man.
This is how important it is.
I mean, it's obviously a gift that we're giving to you, so, just by being in our presence.
39, right?
Do we have any candy we can
there's
give?
no better age to
Anything?
change that.
Any
for-
giveaways?
for thing, I
77.
don't-
You're 10% older. No, actually, you're only 9% older. I'm 70. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Congratulations, you made it.
All right. So, town council offered some input.
Yeah.
We have adjusted these, and submitted them for the town meeting. I think it's worth, did that letter from town council get circulated to everyone or not?
I believe in earlier correspondence, yes, but I'm happy to walk through the points on here.
We can as needed, but I'm just thinking circulating that letter is probably worthwhile for everybody to look at, because I mean, one of the things with the letter, at least from my viewpoint, and, is that it often not crossed the line, but it often was less about legality and sort of process of a good bylaw versus, or of an appropriate bylaw, and substantive, you should do this kind of thing. And so it was trying to figure out, for purposes of a legal review by town council, something we've already voted on and passed, what tweaks were appropriate and what were better left to further discussion if necessary, if at all. So, but it's probably worth everybody looking at that letter to see what the comments were, because it's not that they're wrong, it's just that they were beyond, I think, what was appropriate for this stage, since we'd already voted on this, and to make substantive tweaks, I don't think is appropriate at that point.
Well, we wanted the town council to review it for a legal
Correct.
wording. In other words, timeframes. I see he adjusted some of the timeframes, which, you know, would maybe be appropriate.
That one I thought was sort of borderline, but fine, because they were just
And
tweaking
he
it a little
added
bit.
references to Mass General Law and whatever.
Correct,
You know, it improved the legality of the bylaw, so,
correct.
but you're saying there's other substantive
There were
changes he
some more
wanted to make.
suggested, and you can go through them, and offer your thoughts about whether in the future they should be discussed or added. I mean, to me, this is, you don't wanna let, perfection get in the way of good. I mean, this is something just to get out there, see how it plays out, and then adjust as necessary. And so that's, I think, my goal, since we're going into a little bit of the unknown, so. But I do, like I said, I think it's worth reading those comments and digesting them and seeing whether future changes may be needed. John, do you want to should we just go through them? We'll probably go through reasonably quickly what the tweaks were.
Sure.
The red line.
Shall we talk about the active tweaks?
Are you gonna show it on the screen
Yeah.
for the viewing public?
I
And
wouldn't
Mr.
want,
Sutton,
absolutely.
who's out there somewhere. There he is.
Yeah, he's got to be making pancakes.
No, I thought he might be
Not that
making
late.
pancakes, but he's not.
I don't know, I saw a little smoke on behind
Did you?
it. I think that was,
Oh.
yeah, he's-
It's not like I didn't think about the pancakes, trust me.
Okay. So we do have the tracked version that you have in front of you.
Oh, and, I should say this too, I was thinking more further down the line, but we had talked about, maybe, when you look at that letter, I suppose the other thing, and maybe it's worth just printing out a couple copies of it. We could make motions at the town meeting on the floor to adjust if necessary. So if it's something that you see is worthwhile doing now, is that important to do now, we could certainly do it. It's not preferable, I don't think it's necessary for most of it, but
It might be easy to do at 10:30 or 11 at night too, I
Well, is
think.
that still our location in the
Because-
program, or did
yeah.
that get moved?
For last, pretty much.
You also, the less opportunity to muddy the water
Yeah.
is better, so if we don't have to make a motion on it.
Yeah, amendments are challenging, so then
Um,
people ask questions.
so I'll just have John grab a couple of those, you guys can just take a look through it as we're going through this, if you haven't seen it, and that would be, I guess, the other part of it, is what.
Did
whether
it
you wanna
end
make
up
any-
in chapter 185? We still have the 3 X's here. I would think he would have put it in,
I don't.
council would have put it in 185,
Hold on, I think so, but let me just, I don't wanna say the wrong thing.
other than triple X.
At least we got our committee, we got ours done, after the war, yours will be another 5 years,
5 years. Well,
maybe 4 years. Master plan, yeah, we got ours done,
well, master plan doesn't go to town meeting,
yeah, we got ours done,
comes right here to this planning
we
board.
got ours done. We got.
It ain't, it's not done yet. Have you been to town meetings?
And it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, there wasn't a comment yet on the location of it.
Okay. It has to
Thank you,
be
John.
185 though, but it's gotta be point something. Was there any discussion of where it's gonna be inserted in chapter 185?
Right, not, like you, did you just?
Oh, you got it right here.
Oh, okay.
Trying to make it quicker.
You may wanna come up with a number, John. It'll be 185 dot,
That's the sort of detail that they'll deal with.
sure.
That Ben will deal with, I think.
I'll make sure it's abundantly clear.
Well, we don't want it as a general bylaw.
I'll make sure that point is clear as a bell, crystal clear. Okay, I'm sorry, the curb marks you see on that sheet are relate to some portion. Shall I drive, Mike? You wanna drive?
You go for it.
Okay. So why don't we start with a memorandum? The first three comments on there are open-ended. For sake of assigning a term to it, going fairly deep, in my opinion, down, we'll call it the rabbit hole, to identify niche exclusions or opportunities for short-term rentals. So that relates to where we talk about facilities licensed through other state agencies.
You got more than one copy of that?
Oh, sure, did you lose it?
No.
Okay. Oh, sure. And.
I mean, John, you did ask him, I heard you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So, for example, the first comment, the last phrase of the sentence defining a dwelling unit exempt out emergency shelters for battered women and children. That was a question from town council. No modification was made to the bylaw in responding to that question. No modifications were made for the following two. Do we want to exclude schools and colleges and universities who may offer housing to visiting faculty, guest lecturers who may be teaching a summer course for a month or so? Perhaps a topic for discussion, should that need arise. Short-term rental registration. Is the term zoning enforcement officer defined in the ordinance? Maybe state that the zoning enforcement officer is a town of Suffolk building inspector. That particular one, we know that we explored that and chose that term specifically, should there be a change in the arrangement of town government. Okay, so if we go down to section 3, short-term rental registration, the first edit we see, item D, zoning enforcement officer shall, in accordance with the terms of this section, issue a certificate of registration that shall be valid for a period, blah, blah, blah. The terms of this section was modified after a discussion with Mr. Doherty, as specifically related to the addition of section H, the certificate of registration denial section, the grounds for denial. So we needed to expand what was stated under D to accommodate town council suggested grounds for denial.
The only thing on it, at least on this printed one, they'll probably change that, but that needs to be J.
I think, well, it may not have. It is J on the item, on the one that was distributed, perhaps,
Yeah.
on this comparison, it didn't pick up. Oh, yes, it would be J.
There's a J.
So, so going
Right here.
lowercase j,
It just got cut off.
Oh, J is,
On
but
page-
there's
the
no
last,
I.
the last item for grounds for
There's
denial.
no I, should be I. Did I miss I? Oh, it comes way in. Okay, so it's lowercase j.
Yes.
Okay. And is indented. Got it.
Okay, let's, let's just skip forward in the comments for a moment to section 5C, where the posting of contact information, it needs to not only be on the inside, but also on the exterior of the short-term rental facility. And that is reflected in our modified bylaw. Section 7D, town council asked that we add the words operational or working to the term, to the need for a 2.5 pound multi-purpose operational or working fire extinguisher on each floor.
That's not a layer comment, I don't know what is.
Not alone?
Sitting next to you, I feel like I have to be careful what I say, you know? I'm gonna skip ahead just a little bit again, we'll go back to a couple of items here. Section 13D talks about time frame. As we discussed, felt that it was putting too much of a burden on the zoning enforcement officer to turn around information.
13D.
13D, so we go from
Oh,
7
yeah.
days to 14 to 20.
14
It
is,
doesn't need to be 14, it can just be 20, but that's fine.
if it's in there, that's fine. I'm not gonna change it.
All right, same logic applies to section 15, where the 30-day window for response from the Board of Appeals, excuse me, wrong town, is expanded to 45 to 60 days. And just some language is adjusted. A decision of the Board of Appeals shall be final. Further relief of the decision of the Board of Appeals made under this bylaw shall be reviewable in a court of competent jurisdiction pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A. Zoning, so there's at least some indication that there's understanding this will be a zoning bylaw.
Good.
Pull that one out of the ether there.
Good one.
And then in the last language edit, section 17, the words, in addition to any other penalties provided by this bylaw, the town may enforce provisions of this chapter, and so on and so forth. So jumping back on page 2 of the Bacon-Wilson memo, the second paragraph down, and what they identify as section 13C, but I believe it was actually B. It was actually B where it should have been implemented. There was, the suggestion relates to identifying who the short-term rental tenant is. So putting the burden on the license holder to keep that information updated with the zoning enforcement officer. And then provide an additional avenue for court action, corrective action, should there be violation that the tenant is directly responsible for. So through further discussions, it was determined that perhaps was a heavier edit to the bylaw we see in front of us. And for the time being, the reference to providing tenant information to the zoning enforcement officer was not incorporated into the submittal to John meeting.
And to put it in context, there's a provision in there in memory of someone has to be available within an hour or something like that from the owner or the management company or whatever.
Their owner or their
to
agent.
respond to something. So I think that probably is sufficient, or at least, you know, that's on its face would be reasonably sufficient. We can certainly discuss whether further steps need to be taken, but that seems to be satisfies some of that concern. All right, is that about it, I think?
That's it.
What was the H on page 2? It looks like it's highlighted or something.
So
It
that's
goes all the way
so
through
that is,
to J.
again, it's that, and it has a little bit of substance to it, but it's an appropriate legal comment, which is that you need, if you have to put in some reasons for denial to make it somewhat objective, and not just make it purely you can do whatever you want.
So that was all added.
That was all added.
Section 8.
None of it
Yes.
really jumped out to me as being all that out of the norm. It was sort of, if you're in violation of things that, I mean, it was pretty straightforward, and then a catch-all at the end. And we can revisit that as we go along, but, like I said, that's an appropriate legal comment, which is there was a missing,
It's all in the
Connection.
spirit of what our discussion was, and that we would give the building inspector or zoning enforcement officer practical, denial reasons, and this just lays it out.
correct. So, all right, any questions or comments about these changes? All right.
So where to go?
The only other item related to this, when it comes up as the article at town meeting, I think it's important, whoever speaks, Mr. Doherty,
This is your last opportunity. You can
we,
jump up there.
we
and just do it.
inform the citizens that this is not bed and breakfast or Airbnb bylaw. This is a short-term rental bylaw, right?
For the sake of,
Because it's been in the paper and it's used, B and B is just thrown around as a term, or Airbnb. This is not a bylaw on that. It's a bylaw on short-term rental where the owner is not present or the owner doesn't provide amenities such as breakfast or a wine and cheese board or whatever. So, right?
and I think you're really close to the point there. The only modification to what you said, that is that, yes, it's not bed and breakfast. Airbnb happens to be a platform for short-term rentals.
Okay.
So that's the only tweak I give to your
Okay.
language.
Right, it's-
But
it's-
So when you stand up in,
Yeah.
at town meeting, because we will let you onto the town meeting floor.
Johnny, stand say, Marcus said.
Be careful, give me a microphone in front of a crowd.
Although at
This will-
11
this will apply
o'clock
to
at night,
all short-term rentals as prescribed by the state, and can include short-term rentals that are, offered up on sites such as Verbo or Airbnb, but does not include bed and breakfasts or hotels or other similar larger
Jessica
establishments.
sounds.
Yeah, I'm writing this down.
pretty qualified, huh? I think she's ready.
Hey, anybody but me, it's fine.
Just call me Jim.
All depends
Henson,
how- Oh, that's nice.
And it's great that it's only 6 pages. I think that's awesome. It's better than the sign bylaw, it's better than the parking bylaw. Yes.
It's almost bite-sized.
Yeah.
All right,
Speaking of
it means that Dick needs to be the chair of more subcommittees, is really.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he didn't end up being the chair.
No.
Randy Brown was the
Randy's-
chair.
All right.
Oh, well.
To Randy's credit.
All right.
We can do Randy Brown again.
Thank you, Randy
So-
Brown, for serving.
Just to be clear, this
The planning
amended
board.
version is what got sent
Correct.
for, right?
That's what will appear on the,
Yep.
on the warrant.
Super.
You think
All
it'll
right.
pass?
Yes,
So,
at 11 o'clock at night, it will pass.
given,
I'm taking that first.
given that, A, I can only see the brim of Sutton's hat, and B,
Uh-oh.
it is your last meeting, I will defer and allow Marcus to make the motion at this point in time, the Dave Sutton honorary motion, if you like.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Marcus Phelps will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
All right, and I just, before we do vote on it, want to thank you, Marcus, for all your time and dedication, and you are still welcome to sit out there.
Oh, I may show up I may show up
Hey,
from
Mike,
time to time.
Mike, you can always sit there.
No.
Yep.
Plenty of seats out here.
All right, do I hear,
That's it.
a
You
vote
got
on the
it.
motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I with
Aye.
regret.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you, Marcus.
Bye. to
Thank you,
all my
Marcus.
fans. I figured it out, I've been